In the morning to you, Corey.
Good morning, Todd.
Greetings and welcome, everybody. Welcome to what was Common Sense Revisited. You're listening to a pre-recorded podcast on the No Agenda stream at noagendastream.com. Today is Saturday, March 8th, 2014. We appreciate you joining us. Things have changed a little bit, Corey, since our last broadcast.
Yes, things have gotten better.
Yeah, wait, that's a good way to look at it. I like that. We're no longer on the Republic Broadcasting Network, the show that I broadcast with various folks for 4.5 years is no longer on RBN. And with the advent of modern day technology and the great folks that help support and keep the No Agenda stream running, we are coming at you still on every Saturday at 6 o'clock in the evening, Central Time, 4 o'clock West Coast time, with Agenda31 on noagendastream.com. In a nutshell, we're talking about how you identify yourself either as a piece of property or as a resident in the state you live. And Corey, why don't you give a quick rundown of that dynamic? Because you've really honed it well.
Well, it's very difficult for a lot of people to comprehend this. They have a difficult time. The first thing is being able to take the hypothetical seriously in order to get this argument off the ground and be able to contemplate it. And that is, what if, hypothetically, what if they took your birth certificate away? What if the government said, okay, nobody gets to use a birth certificate anymore, you're on your own. The only thing we're going to do is provide for the common defense, and other than that, you're all on your own. The question would be, how would you identify yourself? And I think that's a good thought exercise that can help people comprehend this, because the difficulty in this is the way we're trained from infancy all the way to death. You're taught to answer, what's your first name? What's your last name? What's your date of birth? What city were you born in? Are you a resident? Are you a U.S. citizen? Are you in the United States? And all of those questions in the context of the way the United States government operates today is designed to brainwash you into answering in a incompetent manner and identifying yourself as a slave or property of the government. So the birth certificate itself is an interesting document. I see it as a weapon, just a weapon laying on the battlefield. And there is the eternal battle that was set up between the states and the federal government, that the federal government would always try and increase its power. And one of the ways they did that was by creating the birth certificate. Now, think about it. Has anyone ever held a gun to your head, or has anyone ever said, if you don't identify yourself as this person, you're going to go to jail? Well, I guess maybe the FBI has, because they wanted, I've seen references to the sovereign citizen movement and so forth, and that's not what this is. But the right to free speech is the self-identification going along with the right to free speech is so well established that when you go to court, you identify yourself. And when you go to a government office, you're the one that identifies yourself. If they didn't need you to voluntarily identify yourself as the person on the birth certificate, they wouldn't need your signature on the driver's license application. They wouldn't need your signature on the Social Security application. They wouldn't need your signature for the Selective Service registration card, all sorts of things. They would be able to just say, we've done this now for you. And separating yourself from the political obligations of the birth certificate is, I think, the most difficult part is the mental challenge. The idea that your entire life you've been taught that you are a certain person, and to realize that you need to operate in order to be free, in order to restrain government properly, in order to avail yourself of the secured rights that are in the Constitution. You cannot identify yourself as the person on the birth certificate for a number of reasons. First off, in common law, which this nation was, the supreme law or the rule of law in this nation is the Constitution, and it is formed within the common laws of England. And you can look that up on the CIA World Fact Book. Many references throughout government authority on what law is at the federal level. and it is the common laws of England. And in common law, a bastard does not have the right of inheritance. A bastard has no real effect on any politics. A bastard cannot rise to the level of being a citizen. There's a lot of reasons why you would never want to identify yourself as a bastard. And the person on the birth certificate is unambiguously an illegitimate child because the mother identifies herself by her maiden name on that birth certificate and then signs it. Now, a lot of people use the wrong terminology. In my mind, they say, "Oh, they did this to us." Well, they didn't. I could create a piece of paper right here that says certificate of ownership, Todd McGreevy. I could put your picture on it, and I could even get your mom to sign it. But that doesn't mean I own you, does it, Todd?
No, it doesn't. No.
Exactly. In order for me to own you in this country, because I could, but I need your agreement. I would need you to say, "Oh yeah, that Corey's got title to me, and he owns me, so I'll mow his lawn." Now that would be a legal form of voluntary servitude. You certainly, that's supported in Supreme Court cases and so forth. But if you don't identify yourself as the person on the birth certificate, then, and the government forces you to identify yourself that way, now your remedy, which is in the Constitution, would be able to charge those authorities who are getting paid through government funding and trying to confiscate your property. You would be able to resist that with a very powerful move, and that is suing them in their individual capacity for earning profits from using titles of nobility. Because the birth certificate, when you don't identify yourself as that person, it puts the government actor in a position where they are converting that document into a title of nobility and then earning a profit from it. And that's a very powerful way to force government to identify you as one of the people. Now, it's more than just saying you're not the birth certificate. It's a complicated, citizenship in the United States of America is complicated. The laws are complicated. And being one of the people requires that you defend that position. And so it's certainly not something that you can just decide one day, "Oh, I'm not the person on the birth certificate, and now government's going to leave me alone." I really doubt that. But I have found, for example, the Orange County Sheriff, Sandra Hutchins, is not known as a constitutional sheriff. That was not her campaign. That was not what she is really known as. But I have to say, she definitely knows her obligations to the Constitution as a sheriff. And the Orange County Sheriff has been fantastic with dealing with me as one of the people of California and honoring their obligation in the sheriff's office. Now, they get paid via the sheriff's department, but the constitutional obligation for them to uphold the Constitution as a public official or a peace officer in the original California 1849 Republic remains, and that title goes to the sheriff's office. And I think the Agenda 31 is just a brilliant concept that you put together, because in the individual counties, the sheriff is the highest authority in that county. And that's the way this nation was originally put together, was from the bottom up. Now, post-Civil War, of course, the moneyed powers at the top, they don't like that. There's nowhere near as many profits as there are when it's a top-down form of government. So they inverted everything and created a whole new set of states that, even though they're called states, like California State, and it operates off of a Constitution of 1879, and the president declared that California State in 1879 was a Republican form of government, but that form of government does not qualify as a state in terms that the Constitution embraces the obligation for Washington, D.C. to provide a Republican form of government to it. Very complicated. And I don't know if I did a very good job of explaining it.
No, you did a great job. It's stuff we've hashed over many times, and it's worth repeating because it's just not something that you're being taught. We're programmed from the get-go. And we're talking about an ens legis entity. We've talked about this term before. At thirdrailblog.com, on the left side, you'll see a section called resources, and you'll see a link to ens legis definition down there right underneath Black's Law. We have links to Black's Law and Bouvier's Law Dictionary, Vattel's Law of Nations. These are all some of the resources that we access to help us with this maze, breaking through this matrix, essentially. According to lawdictionary.org, ens legis, which is derived from Black's Law Dictionary. It's an online version. It's Latin, a creature of the law, an artificial being, as contrasted with a natural person, applied to corporations, considered as deriving their existence entirely from law. And this law being that the birth certificate, I guess issuing a birth certificate, Corey, is not necessarily law, though, is it?
Well, the authority from which it is issued comes entirely from law. For example, you had nothing to do with the creation of your birth certificate. It was something that was just created. Mm-hmm. And I know in California, in fact, this was a subject of several phone calls with officials over the last several months trying to figure out where the original certificate is. And I spoke with an official in Sacramento yesterday and found out where the original copy of the birth certificate is, and I do plan on going up to San Francisco to take a look, or Sacramento, to actually look at it. I want to see everything that's on there, and I've worked out the process to be able to view that.
That you had to make 2 phone calls. You had to call 2 other agencies to get to that third area, if you will.
Well, I've called a lot more than that. The most recent was narrowing it down to 2 different agencies. Yeah.
Like a Mario Brothers game, you've navigated to the big bunch of bananas there. And let's hear. Do you mind if I play this recording you sent me? This is you calling the state vital records.
Let me set this up just a little bit too in regards to the ens legis, because it mentions that it's applied to corporations. And that's the part that people have a difficult time understanding. California State, which operates off of a Constitution of 1879, is a corporation. Mm-hmm. You can actually look up its credit rating on Dun & Bradstreet. And that corporation is a franchise. That corporation, known as the State of California, is a franchise of the federal corporation. And the birth certificate is property of that franchise. And if you use that franchise and have any profits from that franchise in California, you have to pay taxes to the franchise tax board. So that's something that follows all the way through. This definition definitely supports the description of the birth certificate. And then you identify yourself as that franchise that, through the 14th Amendment, has protections that no other type of corporation has really had in the annals of history that I'm aware of. So that gives some foundation for it, and hopefully now listening to this phone call, I think will be helpful.
Vital records, and what I'm looking to do is inspect the original birth certificate, not a certified copy, or an image, but actually inspect the original. And I was wondering if you could tell me, they thought you guys own that. Is it you guys that own the original birth certificate?
You're trying to inspect it?
Yes.
I don't understand what you're asking for, what you're trying to do. I mean, we could help you get a copy of the birth certificate, but...
Right. California Public Records, the California Public Records Act, makes it clear that records are available during normal business hours for inspection. I want to see the original birth certificate, and the purpose of this call is to find out who owns that, because the San Bernardino County Clerk Recorder, they made it very clear that they don't own it, that it would be, they believed that it's Vital Records at the state that owns the original.
Yeah, I'm going to send you over to my supervisor just because I do not know how to help you with your request. So just one moment, please.
Okay, thank you.
Vital Record, Lewis.
Hi, Lewis.
Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
I was given your number.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was given your number by the San Bernardino County Clerk Recorder Vital Records, and then I just spoke to a woman just now, and she transferred me to you. I'm looking to inspect the original birth certificate. Under the California Public Records Act, it says that public records are available for inspection during normal business hours. But I found out that the county clerk recorder, the Vital Records Department down there, they don't own the original. So do you guys own the original?
we have it probably on film. I would assume that's what we would be on the film. If the person was born in the state of California, when was the person born?
1969, and I'm not looking for a copy. I want to inspect the original.
Well, I think there's a certain way you have to do that. You have to send a letter in requesting that. I know there's a certain...
The California Public Records Act is very clear that the request can be done orally, and because I'm not asking for you guys to give me a copy of any records, I'm asking for being able to actually go to your office and then inspect the original record, and that's enumerated in the California... I just need to know...
I understand what you're saying.
Okay.
I need to find out more information from whom you need to actually speak with.
Okay.
I cannot help you.
Okay.
Okay? What is your name, sir?
My name's Corey. It's Corey. And
And what's your number of phone?
949
Uh-huh.
334
Okay.
7702.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to find the person that actually handles that and have them call you.
Okay, would you be able to tell me, make sure I'm barking up the right tree, do you guys own the original birth certificate? Or does that get sent to another
Any
agency?
birth certificate, a birth certificate for any person born in the state of California, we will have the original either on film or it will be on the computer, one of the two.
Well, no, the original is a piece of paper that's signed. I'm not looking for...
Well, that I don't. That I don't know. All I know is that the only ones I've seen are on film, and they may have to request it from the record center. It may have been through the state record center, but it has to go through here. So I'm gonna get the right person that you need to speak with and have them call you.
Okay, that would be great. And could I get your name again?
My name's Lewis.
Lewis. And would you be able to give me an estimate of...
So these folks had never heard such a question before.
You know, it's pretty fascinating to see how the conditioning of the mind works because in both cases, I was just asking to inspect the original. It's not a very difficult concept. And it was they had a difficult time comprehending that by saying, well, the first lady, they're both nice, but just said, I don't understand what you're asking. And once again, when this gentleman, Lewis, responded, he said that anyone born in California, it's either the documents on microfilm or you can get a certified copy. It just goes to show the type of programming that happens. The follow-up phone call, which I did get a call from an official who identified where the original birth certificate is and that to view it, I'd have to go to Sacramento. She's worked there for 27 years. And this was the first time that anybody has ever asked to inspect the original document.
She told you that?
Oh, yeah, she told me that. And in fact, they don't even have an area for people to come in, for the public to come in and inspect the documents. She said they're going to have to find a cubicle and then assign somebody to basically watch their property to make sure I don't destroy it. And I mean, very nice. She wasn't mean or anything. Right. She's very professional, and I'm very grateful to the service they offered. They did a fantastic job, but the rules were such that they're going to have to figure out an area for me to view this document. It just doesn't even exist. So I thought that was quite fascinating.
It's amazing. I mean, California has the GDP of like some countries, worldwide, right? And you're going into the state capital, correct?
That's right.
Yeah. Where they keep the bill of lading for all of the human resources that they own.
Yeah,
essentially.
And I'm really curious because you go on the internet, you hear all these different stories about birth certificates and all these wild theories and everything. And at one point, there were people talking about how when the Tower of Power in New York, when the basement flooded from the storm, that's where all the birth certificates were held and. All sorts of things. And you would think with everybody talking about how, we've been enslaved with this document, I find it amazing that this woman who is the compliance officer for vital records at the state has not received a single phone call for somebody to say, I just want to go down and view it.
Wow.
It'll be very curious when what all is actually on that certificate because they apparently when I don't know this is true or not, it's just something that it seems to be something that they do, is that not all the information on the birth certificate is supplied when they give you the certified copy.
Right.
And that's the part that I'm really interested in, is finding out what is the other information on there.
Well, we talked about it on previous shows when it comes to automobiles and cars, and you think you have the title. You have a certificate of title, which is just a facsimile of the original title, which the manufacturer actually is in cahoots with the GovCo, the state government, which for purposes of this is a federal state. It's a subsidiary of D.C.
Yes.
It's another aspect that people have to keep in mind, that this is why you can be enslaved. You've consented to domicile in the federal state, which is a subsidiary of D.C., which is where, according to the Constitution, the government has exclusive legislative jurisdiction whatsoever. Sidebar for you, Corey. Tim from Illinois, I spoke to him this morning, and he shared with me he's found some case law that stipulates that the Constitution does have can apply in D.C. If the law made in D.C. is not inapplicable to the Constitution. So it's like a double reverse.
Fascinating.
Yeah. So he's going to talk. He'll join us in the next show or two and bring us up to speed on that. But back to the whole thing about the certificate of title. And if you think about it, you know, just like a car title, it's a certificate of title. A birth certificate, when you get a copy and you request it, whether it's quote your own, the one that was assigned to you, or somebody else's, that's saying you're doing research about something or other, you're just getting a certificate of title. You're not getting the actual title. And title denotes ownership, does it not?
Well, in my understanding of looking at this from a point of view of being a common law country, you've heard the term possession is 9/10 of the law. There are so many aspects about the birth certificate. One, the state owns the original. And if that is the foundation of your identification, then you're identifying yourself as somebody else's property. That's the literal interpretation of it. The second part to it is the name construction, being in the specific sequence of first, middle, last, does not identify you as one of the people, because as one of the people, you would be identified by your given and surname or given and family name. And then the third big whammy to that is being a bastard. The person on the birth certificate is a bastard in that the mother uses her maiden name and doesn't take the father's name, which in common law would make you an illegitimate child if you identify yourself as that person. And so there's numerous ways that you can exclude yourself from the secured rights in the Constitution by identifying yourself specifically as the person on the birth certificate.
Yes, you have these rights because you breathe air. That's what the Declaration of Independence essentially lays out. That was one of the kind of the shifting paradigms of world awareness. And and the Constitution is merely a document that has, as you use the word secured, it is set up to say we're going to establish this government, and its role is to protect those rights you already have.
That's right.
Doesn't give you those rights. It protects the rights you already have. And so what we're asserting here is that when you are assigned a birth certificate, and you, of course, as an infant, you have no say in the matter. But as you get older and grow up and so forth, and you continue to identify yourself as the person on that birth certificate, you are consenting and volunteering into the servitude that we're talking about, the shut up slave, status. I mean, we live in a beautiful, Corey. I mean, beautiful, gorgeous, open air prison.
It is the federal plantation.
Yes, and I mean, I count my blessings every day. I'm not trying to take anything for granted here. However, we all see that the hypocrisies that just go on and on. I mean, if you listen to this stream and you listen to the podcasters and the broadcasters on No Agenda, the hypocrisy and the tyranny. Let's back up to the birth certificate again. If you're like me, Corey, by the way, I don't think we really did a proper identification. This is Todd McGreevy, broadcasting from Scott County, Iowa, being joined by
Corey Ibe, broadcasting from behind the orange curtain in Irvine, California.
And we're bringing you Agenda 31 on the No Agenda stream. It's March 8th, 2014. This is a pre-recorded show. If you're like me, Corey, you've been accosted by a man in a blue costume with a badge and a gun on the side of the street, and just literally accosted and told that I had to, immediately enunciate out loud verbally my first name, last name, and date of birth. And if you don't enunciate that data to this costume guy with a badge and a gun, then that costume guy with the badge and a gun will open up what's called an investigation. Right there. Just poof. Investigation is open. And in Iowa, if you don't comply with the demands of that investigation, they're on the fly, and you're not told an investigation is being opened. It's just been opened. You just didn't know it. Then you can be arrested. Your body can be chained and put in the back of a squad car and taken to a jail cell for what's called interfering with official acts because you refused to provide identification. And what we're dealing with is there's a presumption. All of the GovCo employees are operating with the major presumption that you are a piece of property. And as a piece of property, you must tell them your first and last name and date of birth. If you think about it for a second, I mean, why does the government own the data or have on demand the right to the authority, the power, the right, whatever you want to use, to demand your date of birth? I mean, why is that a piece of information I must share?
Well, to play devil's advocate there, the way the country has evolved in its laws, the federal government, the people at the very top, along with the moneyed powers and the bankers, have gotten the country in such a situation that it is, I guess the best way to word it, they view everyone as a resident. And a resident of a state is a lower class than a citizen of the state. And a resident literally means something to be identified. So they go around just identifying everybody. That's the whole goal. The first thing they want to do is identify you. You can look on YouTube and you'll see all sorts of situations where people will respond to an officer who, for the tiniest reason, comes up and wants to identify somebody. And the guy says, "Why do I need to give you my identification?" He goes, "How am I going to know who you are unless I identify you?"
Why do you need to know who I am?
Well, yeah, because they need to make money. That's why.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it's all about, is just revenue production. Through the most skillful in history, just the most skillful way that the powers that be have been able to invert all of the secured protections in the Constitution by a combination of law and mass brainwashing to get people to think it's a good thing to be a resident. You know, if you want a discount on your college education in California, you have to be a resident of California. I mean, that's completely backwards. Nowhere in history has anyone ever viewed themselves as being a resident to being the proper thing, but by giving away, benefits and so forth, you just need to identify yourself as a resident. Because all of those benefits, going to college, going to school, going to elementary school, getting your driver's license, everything goes back to the specific name construction of first, middle, last, and your birth certificate or your immigration papers when you first immigrated and naturalized into the United States.
And for those that are new to this show and these topics, they're probably scratching their head going, "I just can't. What's wrong with just telling the cop your name? Todd, what's your problem? You're just trying to be difficult, and it would be one thing, Corey, if we lived in a society that didn't have the level of tyranny that's going on. I mean, this is the challenge. It's governments run amok. Government's
exactly.
Going wild, and it'd be one thing if we weren't droning and bombing brown-skinned people across the globe and murdering people. It'd be one thing if we didn't have a black op budget that is in the billions of dollars with clandestine alphabet soup agencies running drugs globally, running black op assassination programs under the auspices of spreading democracy. It'd be one thing if we didn't have decades and decades of economic hitmen destroying countries and resources. It'd be one thing if blue-shirted pedophile wannabes weren't fondling people's old lady and young children's genitals at the checkpoint at the airport. It'd be one thing if we didn't have congressional elected people bankrolling their great-grandchildren's fortunes through their insider trading at the I mean, we could go on and on and on. I mean, it is over the top. So it's got to start somewhere, and it can start right how you identify yourself. And to that end, we've talked about this on this show many times, and it's a common law ID is what Corey has coined it. It's create your own ID. Just get your mind around the concept of, I'm going to take control of how I identify myself. And
and you're going to own that document.
Yes, you own the certificate. You own the title, and it's very empowering. I'm telling you, it's a low risk, no risk is what it is. It's a no risk, high reward exercise.
Absolutely.
And if you want to check it out, you can just search engine common law ID. You can search engine Corey Ibe. You can go to CoreyIbe.com. You can go to thirdrailblog.com. On the left, you'll see a series of videos embedded there, and one of them is how to make your common law ID. And I want to circle back to your future trip to Sacramento. So let's fast forward and visualize this. I'm the GovCo official, right? And you're coming in and hello, Mr. Ibe. I've been waiting for you. I understand you were coming. This is a unique circumstance. We've never had anybody do this before. We have before we take you into the area where you're going to be able to view this. Which birth certificate do you want to see?
Well, I'll have that all written out, and I'll have my passport with me to make it the least amount of friction as possible. Mm-hmm. And I'll just show them the passport and then give them the first, middle, last name, date of birth, and the city that the person born into the state of California, which is the birth certificate, is. So I would hand all that information over to them. And
would you associate your passport with that person?
No, not at all. In fact, the way the passport is in the specific name construction of given name and surname. So that's different than first, middle, last. On the application for my passport, you'll see that there is a clear distinction between the applicant, which is the birth certificate, I'm not that person, and the bearer of the passport. So you have somebody who has U.S. citizenship, which is the birth certificate. That is applying for a passport for me who does not have U.S. citizenship. Well, I'm not a U.S. citizen. I'm a citizen of California 1849. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Now, actually going into that office, I really don't want to get into that issue with whoever is the gatekeeper with the birth certificate. Mm-hmm. So I'll take advantage of the programming that I know they've been subjected to their whole life, and they're not even going to recognize the difference between the given and surname that's on the passport. They're just going to see that and say, oh, that's you.
Yeah, you're not trying to win over any converts here. You actually just want to view the physical document. That's the goal. You're not trying
that's
to,
the goal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not trying to make waves at their job or even give them a headache by having them think about the difference between the two.
Go ahead.
I was going to say another example was when I was stopped at the beach in San Clemente. I was on the beach a few minutes past midnight, and the residents are not allowed to be on the beach after midnight, the way the law is. Mm-hmm. So
the residents who've consented to be controlled by these statutes.
That's right. Mm-hmm. And the officers, and this is in a recording that we've played on previous shows, and maybe we can take some excerpts from it in an upcoming show, but they wanted to know my first, middle, and last name. And I said, I don't have a first, middle, and last name. My given and surname is Corey Ibe. And they could not write the citation. Mm-hmm. If there was no difference to it, and a lot of people will say, what's the difference? Well, if there's no difference, then scratch out that part on the citation that says first, middle, last, and then write in given and surname. Well, they can't do that because the rules governing how a notice to appear and related forms, which comes from the California Judicial Council, it has a specific rule that identifies that the name construction on any citation must be in first, middle, last. So you can't even show a passport in order to receive the benefit of a citation.
The benefit.
And it really is a benefit. And the reason why it was considered a benefit, if you go back, it makes sense. And it really is a benefit. But just like any government, it's always trying to expand its power and gain more and more money. When you get a citation, you're actually arrested. The moment the officer puts pen to paper, you're placed under arrest. Now,
it's true.
If they didn't have the ability to issue a citation, that means the officer would have to take you right then and there to a magistrate. So if you're on your way to dinner with your family and you roll through a stop sign, I would say it would be a benefit to get a citation instead of being taken to jail for the weekend. If it's Friday night, You're not going to see a judge until Tuesday. Yeah. I would much rather just get a citation and then deal with it later at a much more convenient way. And that's how the state came up with the idea for a citation a long time ago, which it was a benefit. They didn't have the tens of thousands of vehicle code laws at the time, and everybody thought, well, hey, that's way better for these minor little offenses that, it's way better to get a citation.
I'll give them my pound of flesh in a few days.
Exactly. We'll do it when it's convenient for everybody, and the officer makes the judgment call at the time that you're not a danger to society. This is an administrative thing, but rather than taking you to a judge, you just agree to handle it this way and show up to court later, and we'll get it all handled. Well, when they pulled you over for true safety violations, when the reason for law enforcement to be out there issuing citations was truly based on safety, then that really is a benefit to be able to get a citation. I don't have a driver's license, so I don't qualify for that benefit. If an officer thinks that I have committed a crime and needs to arrest me, then I don't have the benefit of being able to get a citation anymore. They would have to take me to jail. Well, now it becomes a problem because they have made everything a crime. For instance, rolling through a stop sign at 3 miles an hour is not a criminal or arrestable offense. And so if you were to arrest somebody and take them to a magistrate and spend the weekend in jail over rolling through a stop sign, it's going to be a huge pain. It's going to be a lot of work, but you've set yourself up for a false arrest claim against the entity that did arrest you because there was no crime. And the state legislature in California has deemed it to be able to keep this cash cow going, known as traffic tickets, and be able to write you a citation for literally anything now. They can arrest you for something that is non-criminal and then issue a citation. But that doesn't allow them to arrest you and take you to a magistrate for something that's non-criminal.
So you're saying, as one of the people of the several states, it doesn't apply to you?
That's right.
Yes, that's critical right there. And this is the struggle you're engaged in Orange County with what we've referred to as the sunflower seed incident, when you were arrested, in that there was a citation issued with a first and last name construction, even though you never provided such a thing. And
in fact, I provided the opposite. With my situation, if an officer wants me to identify myself, I'm so confident in my position that I'm happy to identify myself. Mm-hmm. Because I understand the difference between a resident and being domiciled in one of the several states. And it's something that is, to me, important. But I readily will show an officer, if I have it on me, I'll show an officer my identification right away. And what that does is it changes the game. The officer needs to have a harmed party. There needs to be a situation of imminent harm, or I've destroyed property, or something that is of a fairly... something that rises to the level of a real crime.
Where there's an injured party.
That's right.
Or the potential for an injured party.
Correct. Like if I'm doing 50 miles an hour through a school zone, and there may not be an injured party, but the officer might be able to get a couple of people to sign an affidavit saying they saw me do that. Well, now that's creating a situation of imminent harm.
That's the term I was looking for, yeah.
That's right. And I could certainly be arrested and then put on trial and everything else for it. So it's not a free ride. It's not something that puts you above the law. It just puts you in a situation where it's a different form of law that is much more agreeable. It recognizes all of your secured rights that just happen to step on the street. I saw a video the other day of somebody being arrested because they stepped onto the street to ask the officer a question. And literally had only gotten maybe 2 feet off the curb. And the officer said, "You're jaywalking, turn around, put your hands behind your back." Well, in the franchise world of the federal government, with the exclusive legislative jurisdiction whatsoever, yeah, you can be arrested and taken in for what is really not jaywalking, but they can term it jaywalking. In the several states, that type of behavior has been eliminated. It's your secured right to be able to travel and walk where you want, as long as you're not creating a situation of imminent harm, impeding traffic, or anything that rises to the level of a true crime.
Well, as our county sheriff has said out loud, and I've got a recording of it, our rights are modifiable, in his view.
Yeah.
Well, if he's speaking collectively as the resident slaves, that's true, and that's who he is dealing with. He is dealing with the resident slaves. There's very few people who are one of the people of the several states, as you are, Corey, and as many of us are ascribing to be. It's just not. Again, back to that presumption I'm talking about. These guys that are militarized now. The police are very militarized, are trained. You have to get DOB, date of birth, and sometimes they'll even ask you for social security. They'll just demand it on the fly. And if you don't have it, then you're an investigation could be opened up on you, and if you don't comply, you could be arrested. At least here in Iowa.
Well, there was a video of a young woman who was jogging, and this is on YouTube recently. I think it was Texas, Austin, or Dallas, or something. Just a young college girl, and she's jogging through town. She crossed the street, and nothing appeared out of the ordinary. And she walked by a shop where it might have been a donut shop, where there was some cops there, 4 of them. And they come out, stop her, a young, very attractive girl. They stop her, put her on the ground, and they ended up arresting her and taking her to jail for failure to identify. She didn't have any ID on her. She was jogging. I mean, that was never intended. It's insane. So
yeah, that's a classic example of what we're talking about. You must have ID to breathe and walk around, I guess. And what if she had a common law ID? How would have that gone down? We're doing this because we're passionate about our subject matter. We want to live in a free. I just want to live in a free county. All right, I'm not worried about the country right now. I'm being very selfish. If I could live in a free county, I'd be very pleased.
Well, and that's the key to remedy is living in your free county, and that more and more counties do that. That begins to put the federal government and its ability to legislate directly on U.S. citizens and do all sorts of things. It puts them back in their box.